Hello, my name is Mark Fleming, and I am a dentist and a transition consultant with Paragon. Today I'll be talking about office sharing and how it is practice equity suicide. The office sharing arrangement has historically been a very popular option for dentists. An office sharing arrangement occurs when two or more dentists operate their own individual practices in a single facility. Doctors enter into an office share for various reasons, but the most common is so each practice can reduce overhead. An office share seems logical, but is sharing a facility with another dentist really a wise financial maneuver? The reality is that office sharing arrangements can be and frequently are financially devastating to all doctors involved. What begins as a seemingly innocent attempt at saving a few dollars in overhead can easily end up costing these office sharing doctors hundreds of thousands of dollars in practice equity. But before I can explain why these doctors' practice equity is in such danger, let's look at the basic pros and cons of office sharing. The possible advantages of office sharing allows two or more dentists to use the same dental office facility, thus minimizing rent somewhat for each. May occasionally allow for sharing of staff, but typically does not. May occasionally allow for sharing of equipment, but typically does not. Allows savings from quantity purchases of supplies. This is minimal and only relevant if they use the exact same supply brands. Provides potential for emergency patient coverage while one doctor is away from the office. Now let's talk about the potential limitations of office sharing. Patient coverage is a misconception. Doctors don't discontinue treatment of their own patients to treat patients of another doctor. Emergency patients may receive temporary treatment, but this can be handled just as well by any doctor. Office sharing does not promote sharing of patients or cross referrals for specialty treatment. The doctors are still solo practitioners and are hesitant to share their patients with any other doctor for fear of losing the patient permanently. Our experience reveals that less than 1% of office sharing arrangements have written agreements. You need to sign an agreement while you're still friends. Don't wait until the relationship becomes adversarial, and history proves it will. Now let's cover the definite disadvantages of office sharing. Personal liability exposure. The public assumes a partnership. Attorneys do as well. The courts frequently determine that a partnership exists. One doctor can easily incur personal liability resulting from the adverse actions of an office sharing partner. Loss of practice value. Each doctor's practice equity value is almost always severely compromised, and in some instances can be totally diminished. Is a few $100s a year in overhead savings really worth losing hundreds of thousands in practice equity? Competition. Does it make sense that your quality patients are walking through the front door of another doctor's practice? Regardless of the relationship you have now, you are still competitors, and relationships can easily change. No additional passive income. The bulk of your personal income is directly tied to your individual production. An office share is not a substitute for a co-ownership relationship that provides you with passive income from the production of a doctor other than yourself. Office sharing doctors continue to experience the same negative cash flow when away from the office because they still have to pay their share of the overhead expenses. Again, an office sharing arrangement is not a substitute for co-ownership. While there are a vast number of negatives, reality number one is the potential loss of practice equity. An office sharing arrangement often ends up costing one or all the doctors hundreds of thousands of dollars in practice equity. Why? Because it is virtually impossible to find a willing buyer. The first question every buyer asks is, how do I know the patients will not end up with the other doctor in the office? The truth is that many of the patients will end up with the other doctor in the office. After all, the other doctor in the office has probably met many of your patients already. It is a natural move for a patient to go to another doctor they have met when you are no longer available. Of course, The other doctor in the office generally always tells us, and you, that he or she does not need any more patients. But does anyone really believe that? I can't remember ever meeting a dentist who thought they have enough quality patients. Many of your patients already think that you and the other doctor in the office are partners. Again, it is natural for a patient to turn to your partner when you are no longer available to handle their dental needs. Reality number 2. The logical buyer for your practice is the other doctor in your office. But, even though that is the first doctor we will approach, how often do you think that the other doctor in your office will actually buy your practice? Virtually never. Why? Because when you eventually give up and retire without ever finding a willing buyer, he or she will get your practice for free. I know some of you are thinking that this will not happen to you. The reason I know is because of how many times it has happened and the doctor was so shocked. I have even more bad news. Even if you are fortunate enough to find a willing buyer, the chances of that buyer getting acquisition financing for the purchase of an office share practice is virtually none. We have letters from 5 different national dental practice acquisition lenders who will not loan any acquisition funding on the purchase of a practice involved in an office share unless the buyer is the other doctor, or the buyer is simultaneously purchasing all practices involved in the office share. So there's a very good chance that you will have to finance the entire sale of the practice yourself. You and your family deserve a better fate. It is a challenge, but there are ways to counteract the negatives that exist to office share practices. In summary, the sale of office share practices presents some very challenging obstacles to overcome, and virtually none of the doctors were even remotely aware that their decision to get involved in an office share was such a problem when the time to sell was reached. But those doctors in an office share who wait to sell until they are ready to retire have extremely limited options. If you are involved in an office share, it is critical that you start planning your career exit strategy now. Paragon Dental Practice Transitions is a national network of many individuals who play a significant role in each transition. Dentists, attorneys, accountants, and healthcare administrators. We have consultants like myself in your local area ready to help you with your practice search. Contact Paragon today and schedule your complimentary consultation. No obligation, just an extremely worthwhile education. For more information, visit our website at www.paragon.us.com or contact us by email at info@paragon.us.com or toll free at 866-898-1867.